Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the officials of the Ministry of Planning and Development, the Ministry of Public Utilities, the Ministry of Works and Transport, and the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. My name is Bridget Anizette George, and I am the chairman of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee. The Committee on Public Administration and Appropriations has the mandate to consider and report to the House on A, the budgetary expenditure of government agencies to ensure that expenditure is embarked upon in accordance with parliamentary approval. B, the budgetary expenditure of government agencies as it occurs and keeps Parliament informed of how the budget allocation is being implemented. And C, the administration of government agencies to determine hindrances to their efficiency and to make recommendations to the government for improvement of public administration. The purpose of this meeting is to examine the implementation of the Public Sector Investment Program for fiscal year 2021. The role of the committee is to assist the stakeholders in achieving the efficient delivery of services while ensuring that expenditure is embarked upon in accordance with parliamentary approval, determine the challenges being faced and possible solutions to these challenges, and make recommendations for improvement of public administration. This meeting is being broadcast live on the Parliament's Channel 11, on Radio 105.5 FM, and the Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. Viewers and listeners can send their comments related to today's inquiry via email, parl101@ttparliament.org, facebook.com/ttparliament, Twitter @ttparliament. Participants are advised that their microphone should remain muted until recognized by the chair. I will therefore now invite the members of the committee to introduce themselves, and thereafter I will invite the members of the various ministries to introduce themselves, starting with the Ministry of Planning and Development, followed by the Ministry of Public Utilities, then Works and Transport, and then Rural Development and Local Government. So that I now invite the members of the committee and to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all. My name is Wade Mark.
Good afternoon, Clarence Rambarat, member.
Good afternoon, everyone. Amrita Deonarain, member.
Good afternoon, Lisa Morris-Julian, member.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ayana Webster-Roy, member.
Thank you. So we can now start with the ministries, Ministry of Planning and Development.
Good afternoon all. Rick Javed Ali, the Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary.
Good afternoon all. Lisa.
We are having a bit of a difficulty in hearing from the Ministry of Planning and Development. Okay, so can I ask, in the interest of time, that we move on to the Ministry of Public Utilities, then Works and Transport, then Rural Development, and we'll come back and see if Ministry of Planning and Development have sorted out their technical issues by that time. Thank you. Ministry of Public Utilities.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee, and other colleagues. I am Nicolette Duke, Acting Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Public Utilities.
Good afternoon again, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mike O'Connor, Project Manager at the Ministry of Public Utilities.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ali Cullis, Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Utilities.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Eric Jones, Project Manager, Ministry of Public Utilities.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Julian Suraj, Project Support Officer at the Ministry of Public Utilities.
We now go on to the Ministry of Works and Transport.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Sonia Francis Yearwood, Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Works and Transport.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Hayden Phillip, Program Director, Ministry of Works and Transport.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nathan Ram Singh, Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Catherine Babu Durga. I am the Acting Director of Readiness.
Good afternoon, Chair. Mahadev Jagdev, Program Director, Ministry of Works and Transport.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Anil Mohan Singh, Acting Director of Highways, Ministry of Works and Transport.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Kerry Shepherd. I'm Chief Drainage Engineer in charge of the Coastal Protection Unit.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I am Leon Richardson. I'm the Acting General Manager at the PTSC.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lennon Olivier. I'm the Acting Chief Executive Officer for SINCO, one of the business units of the Port Authority.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Steve Garb Singh. I'm VP Engineering at NITCO.
Okay, so can we therefore move on to the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government?
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I am Lester Bascom, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. I am Jerry David. I'm the Senior Disaster Management Coordinator at the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government.
Okay, so it seems that
and I'm the Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary.
okay, we had everybody from the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. And if that is the case, can we go back to the Ministry of Planning and Development? Let's see if they're in a position to join us now.
Rick Javed Ali. Afternoon, Chair. Testing. Rick Javed Ali, Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Planning and Development.
Good afternoon, Chair and everyone present. Lisa Barrow, Project Planning and Reconstruction Division, Acting Assistant Director.
Is there no one else from Ministry of Planning and Development? Okay, and if there's no one else, then I therefore will proceed. If members join us after, we'll, recognize them and have them introduce themselves. Okay, so At this stage, what I would like to do is I would like to invite each of the PSs to make a brief opening statement. And I think to properly set the context, I will invite you, Mr. Ali, Mr. Rick Ali, as the Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Planning and Development to open the session. Mr. Ali, your mic.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and good afternoon to all the members of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, and to my colleagues from the Ministry of Planning and Development, Ministry of Public Utilities, Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, and Ministry of Works and Transport, respectively. It gives me great pleasure to be here today virtually to represent the Ministry of Planning and Development and to engage in discussions with your committee about the implementation of the Public Sector Investment Program, the PSIP, for fiscal year 2021. Madam Chairman, I'm positive that your committee is well aware that the Public Sector Investment Program represents the strategic investment plan of the government in the formulation of the annual national budget, and it attempts to match capital investment with national priority areas. Accordingly, the PSIP is often viewed as an investment programming tool that seeks to advance national policy objectives to positively impact on overall national development. The PSIP comprises programs and projects of respective ministries, departments, and agencies that are designed to achieve national strategic objectives, and it is funded through the Consolidated Fund as well as the Infrastructure Development Fund. The Ministry of Planning and Development, being a center of government ministry, is, among other things, charged with the responsibility for medium and long-term economic policy planning. Through its Project Planning and Reconstruction Division, the PPRD, the ministry provides support to other ministries, departments, and agencies in the formulation of their policies, plans, and strategies that are necessary for the sustainable development of our beloved country. This support comes in facilitating the development of projects and monitoring the associated implementation of these projects that collectively comprise the PSIP. The 2021 PSIP was framed in accordance with the National Development Strategy, or 2016 to 2030, commonly referred to as Vision 2030, together with the broad policy recommendations for development as contained in the Roadmap to Recovery report, particularly in light of the impacts experienced arising from the COVID-19 global pandemic. Additionally, the 2021 PSIP sought to sensitize ministries, departments, and agencies as to the proposed reintroduction of the medium-term public investment planning through the 3-year PSIP, commencing with the preparation of the capital expenditure program for fiscal 2023. This was documented in the segment entitled Medium-Term Policy and Planning Agenda, which serves as a precursor to the second planning horizon 2021 to 2025 of the Vision 2030 process. The segment entitled Monitoring and Measuring Performance attempted to showcase the key performance indicators that the PSIP would be measured against to ensure maximum returns on the strategic areas of investment. The various aspects of strengthening policy development, project management, and monitoring and evaluation are functions of various arms within the Ministry of Planning and Development, namely the PPRD, the Project Planning and Reconstruction Division, the Socio-Economic Policy Planning Division, SEPPD, and the National Transformation Unit. And I am pleased to be accompanied here today by a few members of 2 of these divisions. It is accepted that the PPRD focuses on the selection and prioritization of programs and projects for inclusion in the PSIP, and monitors the overall implementation of the entire PSIP portfolio. However, it must be emphasized that ministries, departments, and agencies ultimately remain responsible and accountable for the successful execution and completion of the specific programs and projects under their respective heads of expenditure. It is also acknowledged that to achieve maximum efficacy of the PSIP, there is a need for the continuous training and development of staff within respective MDAs to focus the implementation of these projects and programs within the design context. It has been reported that individual MDAs continue to be challenged by a high turnover of contract project management professionals in their project implementation units, and this has negatively impacted some of these projects and programs. Accordingly, the Ministry of Planning and Development, as part of its medium-term public investment strategy, intends to make recommendations to expand the human resource capacity of the establishments within respective ministries and to standardize the project management positions so that the disruption caused by regular turnover may be addressed. Madam Chair, the Ministry of Planning and Development's team looks forward to participating in today's discourse as we recognize the impact that the public sector investment program is intended to realize on our national development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ali. And I will now call upon the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Utilities to make her brief opening statement.
Good afternoon again, Chairman, members of the committee, colleagues, all. On behalf of the ministry's team, I thank you for this opportunity to share on the execution of our public sector investment program for 2021. The Ministry of Public Utilities is mandated to provide leadership and governance to the sector and to facilitate the delivery of affordable, quality public utilities through the stewardship of our implementing agencies in water and wastewater, coastal and waste management. The ministry also has responsibility for providing social interventions for the unserved and underserved through its electrification program, residential electrification assistance program, community water improvement program, and the utility assistance program, the last of which falls under the recurrent expenditure. The ministry subscribes to the Vision 2030 ethos of optimizing the quality of life for all citizens, and its programs and projects are thus aligned to the 5 developmental themes with the aim of providing a foundation for the future development of the country's industrial, commercial, and residential landscape. And so we look forward to today's discussion and to any recommendations arising from the committee or our colleagues on this meeting in moving forward in this thrust. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam PS. And now might I invite the PS of the Ministry of Works and Transport to make her brief opening statement.
Good afternoon once again, Chairman and members of the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee, as well as colleagues from the Ministry of Planning, Public Utilities, and Rural Development and Local Government. As my colleagues would have indicated, I thank you for the invitation to undertake an examination into the implementation of the Ministry of Works and Transport Public Sector Investment Program for the fiscal year 2021, spanning the period October 2020 to September 2021. As identified by PSIP, the Ministry's Public Sector Investment Program is funded by 2 funds, the Consolidated Fund and the Infrastructure Development Fund. The Ministry works with and along other agencies towards the implementation of its overall public sector investment program. In fiscal year 2021, Ministry of Works and Transport received a revised allocation in the sum of little over $1 billion. Its overall expenditure rate was 87.2%, with 90.6% expenditure rate under the IDF and 87.2% under the consolidated fund. Under the Public Sector Investment Program, the Ministry continued to pursue over 86 programs and projects. Officers of the Ministry, divisions, and state agencies stand ready this afternoon to provide clarification in respect of projects undertaken to the extent possible and to provide further information in writing as may be required. Once again, we thank you for the ability to be here this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Madam PS. And finally, may I call upon the PS in the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government to make his brief opening statement. No, I believe the PS is here, not the Deputy PS. So, Ms. Bascom.
Thank you again, Chair, members of the committee, as well as members of the listening and viewing public. It is certainly a pleasure once again to meet with the PAAC to discuss PSIP 2021. As the nation knows, the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government is one of the closest ministries to the population. At head office, as well as with 14 corporations, we provide services ranging from disaster management to garbage collection to public health, a whole range of services to our burgesses from the cradle to the grave. So it is our pleasure to be here having this discussion, and we thank you for the opportunity given to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you all. And I think to start off the discussion, I would like to pose my first question to the PS in the Ministry of Planning and Development. When you spoke about, grounding the projects in Vision 2030, and I would like, if maybe you can share with the committee your view on the progress of, this will be the ministries across the board, in either meeting or surpassing the goals set out in Vision 2030 and the sustainable development goals that they'll align to. If you could give us some insight into where we are at. Mr. Ali, your mic? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, for the first question. Firstly, the Ministry of Planning and Development proposed that programs and projects ought to be aligned with the national policy and priorities as identified in Vision 2030 and the Roadmap to Recovery. Specifically, those that supported digital transformation, food security, and the rebuilding of the economy with focus on key sectors such as manufacturing, construction, energy and energy industries, tourism, the creative industries, the green and the blue economy, and financial services. Now, the total PSIP, as was requested by various ministries, departments, and agencies, for total PSIP funding amounted to $1,485 million. And the total number of projects amounted to 1,597 projects. The Ministry of Finance dictated a total PSIP ceiling of $111 million. I apologize there, $411 million. And that comprised a total of 1,079 projects. That was disaggregated in terms of 2,222 million out of the consolidated fund and 1,889 million from the Infrastructure Development Fund. The criteria that the Ministry of Planning and Development used for both the inclusion and the exclusion of projects within the PSIP were detailed in the call circular, and therefore those criteria guided the PPRD in the selection of projects and programs. I don't know if that gives you any insight, Chair, as to in terms of your question, but that was our guidance at the ministry.
Okay, so I understand your guidance, and I think more what I'm looking for is outcomes. Okay, where do you see us in terms of achieving the goals that you've set out in the National Development Strategy, in terms of projects and where programs that are deliverables, but in terms of attaining by 2030?
Chair, apologies, Chair. Your questions are focused with respect to PSIP 2021. Chair, my apologies. I don't have that data in front of me at the moment. I would commit to supply the committee with our response in writing if you don't, if you would so allow.
Yes, please, because I think it's important. We're in 2022, and I think there are 8 more years left. So, you know, you grounded a lot of your own contribution in the National Development Strategy and Vision 2030. So that's why I went there. So maybe I could ask you another question. Again, having regard to what your opening statement was, I got the impression that one of the challenges that ministries face is the high turnover of staff in their divisions that deal with project implementation. So I would like to ask you, in terms of the PSIP 2021, from where you sit in the Ministry of Planning and Development, what challenges you would have observed that ministries and departments would have encountered in the implementation of the PSIP?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Chair, for your question. In respect of PSIP 2021, it is noted that there's a historic trend across many PSIPs that the utilization of resources is typically relatively low in the first quarter of each fiscal year. And this is followed by steady increases over the remaining 3 quarters of the fiscal year. The reason for that is based on the fact that ministries, departments, and implementing agencies undertake the necessary pre-planning, reprioritization, and review of their implementation during the first quarter after the budget allocations have been made. Now, this is typically followed by an acceleration of the actual implementation, and that usually continues at a steady pace until the end of the fiscal year. Of course, in 2021, they had social and economic shocks that arose from the COVID-19 pandemic, and these shocks would have fundamentally disrupted the implementation of several PSIP programs and projects as a result of the various public health regulations that were instituted to contain the spread of the virus. Now, the implementation of quarantines inevitably reduced the labor force and resulted in a deceleration in the execution of some key projects and a resultant decrease in output regarding the completion of tasks within MDAs. Our construction industry was closed from May to July, and in order to facilitate the containment of the spread of the virus, and this closure obviously resulted in delays in construction activities for many major infrastructural work projects. I'm certain the Ministry of Works will be able to support on that statement. Now, there's always the typical not typical, but very common reference to the lack of timely releases of funds, and that may result in the late starts of projects and slowdown of work and work stoppages, which can eventually and ultimately result in delays in the completion of projects. Of course, the Ministry of Finance will be in the best position to address the issues regarding releases of funds. Now, your question about the challenges, the two major challenges which I may have referenced previously, are that programs and projects sometimes are not sufficiently in a state of readiness for effective implementation, and this sometimes is as a result of lack of requisite statutory approvals, land and construction, and delays in acquiring rental approvals. Again, Ministry of Works, I'm certain, will be able to expand on these for any of the major construction projects that would involve typically for land acquisition projects, or etc. My reference to the understaffing and the lack of trained and dedicated staff to project implementation earlier is because of the reports coming in from ministries and departments in their interactions with the Ministry of Planning and Development, where they have reported a high turnover of qualified contract project management professionals in the various project implementation units of their respective ministries. So those are the major challenges that I would say the Ministry of Planning and Development has noticed generally across the PSIP, particularly in respect of fiscal year 2021. Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to ask one last question. Your project screening brief, which on earlier occasions I've heard your ministry espoused as maybe if I say a panacea, that might be raising it too high, but as one of the solutions for what would have been the issue with planning and approvals and all these starts of things. Has that been successful?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And our project screening brief has been in operation for approximately 2 years. And the measure of success may be not at 100%. The intention of the project screening brief is to ensure that the projects are adequately conceptualized and that there's a state of readiness before funding is recommended. Now, in the initial phase of this PSB, this project screening brief, the ministry has recognized that not all of the projects which may have been scrutinized using the project screening brief method, especially over these first 2 years, have sufficiently met and sufficiently satisfied the rigid conditions that were intended in the conceptualization. So that being said, I will acknowledge that the Ministry of Planning and Development recognizes the need for the PSB process, the project screening brief process, to be comprehensively detailed and rigorous. And I would also want to highlight that in March 2020, during this fiscal year, for which today's discourse is about, in March 2020, there were two project screening brief working sessions that were conducted with various respective planning units and project implementation units of various line ministries, so as to provide guidance with respect to the preparation of these documents. That being said, however, I would acknowledge that the entire PSB operation is not yet at 100% success, and it has room to evolve and to be developed into a more rigid analysis of projects, especially at that conceptualization phase, when ministries are introducing them for consideration for financing.
Okay, and then would I be wrong then in saying that lies with you, meaning your ministry?
That is correct. Yes, okay. And we acknowledge that, and we are working on it as we
Okay,
as we
so that-
evolve into the next fiscal years.
So, well, what I'd ask you to do is if you could present to us in writing what you've seen as the areas of, I don't want to say weakness, but deficiencies, and how you intend to address that. Okay, so you'll give us that in writing, and therefore I will at this stage invite my members of the committee to open the discussion with respect to the other entities that they may wish to address. And I will initially call upon Member Dionorine. If you could start off the discussion, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I go to the other ministries, I have some follow-up questions to the Minister, to Ministry of Planning and Development. Madam Chair, are you hearing me properly?
I'm hearing you very well.
Okay. So PS in Ministry of Planning, you indicated in your introductory statement that the Ministry of Finance gave an initial ceiling of PSIP ceiling of $4.11 billion. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right. So I just needed to confirm. When I look at the development program for 2020, which gives an revised estimate of 2021 of the PSIP, I see that the total figure under the consolidated fund and the IDF combined was approximately $3.06 billion. So is it possible for you to explain to us, perhaps I am assuming it is because of the onset of the pandemic, could you give us some insights as to what contributed to this reduction in the estimate?
Ms. Dionorine?
Yes, PS?
Fair enough. I'm just going to refer this question to Mr. Brooks.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, member. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, so in the PS's initial statement, he indicated that a PSIP ceiling was given by the Ministry of Finance for fiscal 2021 of $4.1 billion. When I look at the development program, I see that figure, that $4.11 billion, was revised downwards to $3.06 billion. And my question is, what contributed to that reduction in allocation for the development program, which is the allocation of funds to both the consolidated fund and the infrastructure development fund, both of which forms the PSIP, if I understood correctly from PS. Your mic is muted.
Right, so the figure of 4.1 billion really would have represented the overall ceiling. The figure, however, that you're quoting, which is a revised estimate, is the projected expenditure. That is how much would have been utilized by ministries, departments, and agencies as at September 30th. So it's not that it would have been revised downwards. That is how much the ministries and departments would have utilized as at September 30th, at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, I understand. So then could you explain to us what probably would have contributed to, well, I want to say an underutilization of the amount allocated from 4.11 billion to 3.06 billion?
I believe it would have been a result of the pandemic, the effects of the pandemic, and also the challenges faced by ministries and departments in terms of capacity in project management and So those factors would have, and probably also the untimely release of funds. Those factors would have influenced the utilization or the expenditure.
Okay. Okay. So let me go back to the PS of Ministry of Planning and Development. PS, you indicated that there were two primary challenges that you are experiencing with the implementation of the PSIP, and one of them has to do with the state of readiness for implementation by ministries and departments, and the second has to do with a high, which I thought was quite interesting, a high turnover of project management professionals in different ministries. So could you tell me from the Ministry of Planning and Development side, what is being done to resolve this problem?
Member General, the question. In respect of the high turnover of the contract staff, it is recommended, or I indicated initially that the Ministry of Planning and Development intends to make recommendations to expand the human resource capacity of the establishments of the various ministries throughout the public service. And in doing that establishment expansion, to recommend that the positions of the project management positions be standardized so that there will not be that disruption caused by regular turnover.
Ministry of Works and Transport, is this a problem that your ministry is experiencing at the moment, or with the PSIP implementation? Because being one of the ministries that implements a large chunk of the PSIP, I am assuming that this is a problem that you face.
In terms of the question of implementation rate is at 87%. As to whether we are experiencing a high turnover of project management staff, I would not say that we are experiencing a high turnover. We are seeking to make sure that in those areas where we need project management staff, that we are recruiting. So at this time, we are in certain areas we're recruiting, but generally speaking, we are not experiencing a high turnover.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to the Ministry of Public Utilities, is this a challenge that you are being faced with? Why I'm asking each PS is because what I'm trying to ascertain is as to if a root cause analysis has been done to understand why there is a high staff turnover rate, especially in the field of project management, because the implementation of the PSIP is primarily based on project management and project management expertise. So the statement by the PS in Ministry of Planning and Development could pose a severe risk to the entire implementation of the PSIP. So to the Ministry of Public Utilities, is this a problem that you are facing at present?
I would not say that we have a problem of high turnover. We do, however, have 2 vacancies that we are seeking to fill, and we are about a couple months away of filling those because we have already gone through the recruitment and selection process. We have 5 positions at the project management and senior project management levels. And the positions, the 3 at the project management levels are currently filled, and those officers are operating. And within the shortest possible time, we believe that the other 2 positions will be filled because, of course, we have already identified the successful candidates from our interview process.
Okay, thank you. PS and Ministry of Planning and Development, did your ministry do an analysis as to into which ministries in particular or departments this challenge that you spoke of is occurring?
The question, Ms. Generine, is yes, the Ministry of Planning and Development would have engaged in such. I believe it should have been in and around the time of April 2021.
Okay, so could you tell us which ministries are those? Okay, if you don't have the information, could you submit it to us in writing?
No problem, member. I will commit to submit in writing.
Okay, so as I have you on the floor, let me continue with some follow-up questions that I have with respect to what Madam Chair would have asked. Now, Madam Chair initially asked with respect to the how is the PSIP program been contributing towards the attainment of Vision 2030? And I know you would have committed to submitting that answer in writing. However, I want to draw your attention directly to the PSIP 2021 document. This is the orange book that was published and available to the general public. On page 193, you have some key performance indicators and targets that were identified for 2021. And I want to draw your attention to item 6.0, building smart and quality infrastructure. Ministry of Planning and Development being the ministry that is responsible for monitoring the overall implementation of the PSIP. Could you give us an idea as to whether you were able to increase the kilometers of roads paved per year by 10%? You can also feel free to refer this question to Ministry of Works and Transport after you have initially answered.
But member, might I just guide and suggest that in the interest of time, in terms of that attainment, maybe we should go directly to the Ministry of Works and Transport. Yes? Thank you.
Yes, member. Chairman, should I continue?
Yes, please, Madam PS.
Yes. So in terms of the percentage in the kilometer roads paved per year, based on our analysis for the 2020-2021 period, we would have achieved approximately 7%, 7.5% under the PSIP in terms of our capital program, and we would have achieved at least 2% under our current program. So we have estimated that we're averaging between around 9%, 9 to 10%.
Sorry, I was muted. So 9 to 10% of roads were paved in 2021?
It's repaved, yes.
Yes, repaved, sorry. Okay. And with respect to the other indicators, the average age of the PTSC bus fleet, was it reduced by 10%?
The average age would not have been reduced by 10%. The reduction in the average age was hinged on the introduction of a fleet of new buses. The approval process for that was delayed, and as such, the average overall fleet age was not reduced by that 10%.
Okay, and the last indicator I would ask on before I pass over to another member is with respect to the increase in the number of buses in the PTSC bus fleet by 10%.
So that is linked to the other question. While we did have an increase in the numbers, it would not have been to 10% because the major repeated project did not get underway as expected.
Sorry, I'm not hearing you clearly. Could you repeat the question? Repeat the answer, please.
My apologies, member. No, I'm saying that the two questions are linked in that there was a repeating process underway. It is still underway. And because the approval process for that was delayed, the number of buses increase was also delayed, which also would have resulted in the average age being reduced, also not occurring. So I was just indicating that the two issues are directly linked.
Okay, so is the intention to have to achieve this target in 2020?
In 2022, we are moving towards that. Yes, we are moving towards that target once that approval process and the engagement of a provider. It is not expected that it may be achieved fully in 2022 because the purchase of buses, once you place in the final order, it takes a relatively long lead time in terms of the manufacturing process. So we are averaging between 2022 and 2023.
Okay. Madam Chair, I would pause.
Okay. Thank you so much, Member Duran. I just wanted to get some clarification from the PS Ministry of Works on the buses.
Yes.
This projection of increasing or reducing the age of the fleet by 10%, was that related to the project of buying 100 buses?
Chair, you see me pausing because the 100 buses would have been purchased over, I believe it is a 3-year period, 4-year period, with the last 5 buses coming in this fiscal year. I am not, can't say in terms of this metric, the exact period identified by the Ministry of Planning. If it is over the last 4 years, it would have been increased. We would have reached target. But if it is between 2019, 2020 to 2021, then we would not have.
Okay, so just let me make sure I'm understanding. Of the 100 buses that were targeted that project, there are only 5 left to be purchased. So you got 95.
Yes.
Yes? And that 5 that are left, that is what is going to be complete. The procurement of those will be completed in fiscal 22.
Yes.
Yes? No. In the PSIP booklet at page 193, and I think this is what Member Dion was asking about, there was a statement that in terms of the percentage of number of buses that the PTSC has, right, they were going to increase or they were going to decrease the average age by 10%. Okay?
Yes.
All right. We understand that was not achieved, okay, because you did not procure the buses. So what I want to find out is if the 5 buses that weren't procured, if that is what resulted in the average age of your fleet not going down to the 10%.
I don't believe that is the case, Madam Chair. In addition to this, the project which aimed for a 100 buses, purchase of 100 buses, there was also on the books or in the pipeline, project pipeline, another project to purchase an increased amount of buses.
Mm-hmm.
So if that project had got off the ground, then we would have definitely achieved the 10%.
Right. So it is as a result of that second project. Do you recall how many buses were to be procured in that other project?
The intention, the proposal is to purchase over a period in time 300 buses.
300 buses?
Over a period of time, yes.
Okay. And therefore, in fiscal 2021, could you tell us how many of those 300 buses were to be procured? If you can't tell us now, if you could tell us in writing, okay? And yes, and the other thing I wanted to find out is that you said in your submission that even though your average age of your fleet went up because you didn't get the new additional buses, right? That in fact, your functional fleet, your average daily functional fleet improved, okay, from 232 buses to 245 buses.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? So I want to ask firstly, how was that achieved? And secondly, because as you indicated, procurement of buses is a protracted thing, whether you can see any further efficiencies being realized from your existing fleet based on what you achieved in 2021 to redound to better service for the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
So, Madam Chair, I can say that that increase would have been directly attributed to the maintenance program being undertaken by the PTSC. I would want to ask Mr. Richardson if he can identify how that program is continuing. That it is based on the maintenance program implemented by the PTSC to bring buses back online.
Thank you, PS, Madam Chair. That program is a program where we implemented a system to improve the maintenance of the buses by performing regular maintenance checks on the buses, planned maintenance schedules that are held by the engineering department, identifying issues before they become greater issues, and working with the suppliers and the manufacturers to ensure that all the repairs that could cause the current fleet that we have to diminish are addressed in a timely manner. So because of that, the PS would have been explaining, that has resulted in us being able to maintain the current fleet that we have to provide the service to the general public.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Richardson. And what I want to ask is, can you envisage any further efficiencies coming through that program based on your existing fleet and all the vagaries that are concerned in acquiring new buses? Can you foresee increased efficiencies from your existing age fleet?
Madam Chair, yes, Madam Chair, could I provide that response in writing, please?
Yes, and if so, if you can, by doing what? You will put in writing. Okay, thank you. And just before I invite other members, I just want to ask the PS, in terms of, you said earlier that you think you're wrong about, would have done about 10%, achieved your target in road repaving in 2021. At the date of your submission, I think there was about 6%. Okay, so it would mean that between September, middle of September and the end of the fiscal, you would have achieved the other 3 or so percent. So could you give us a listing of the roads that were paid as of the 17th of September 2021, which gave us 4% under pure and 2% under the recurrent program, and the additional roads which would have been repaved after the 17th of September up to the end of the fiscal year to bring us to the 9 or so %. Okay, you could give us that in writing.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, might I invite at this stage Member Brambarat to join the conversation?
Thank you, Chair. My question is to PS planning. It deals with the references to the capacity of ministries and the skills and the project design. So my first question is, why are projects that are not ready for funding put into the PSIP? Why these projects that are so deficient that they cannot be executed right away? Why are they put into the PSIP in the first place?
I guess your question is more in a broader context. You're speaking about PSIPs in general and not specifically to 2021, because obviously 2021's PSIP would have been geared, taking into consideration the global scenario that would have arisen as a result of COVID and the need for recovery. Generally, if it is that projects are proposed that are in sufficient alignment with our national policy or our policy objectives, sometimes those projects, when ministries present them, if not in a full state of readiness at the point in time when included into the PSIP, it is expected that the ministries would be able to somewhat catch up during the fiscal year in terms of the implementation, because of the associated importance of those projects in alignment with our national policy.
It sounds to me like the projects sound good on paper, but so in terms of an outline, it sounds good. But in the context of how you screen projects for the purpose of funding, and how you screen projects for the purpose of implementation, many of these projects sound as though they are just words written on paper and unimplementable because they have not been conceived in the way a project should be conceived for the purpose of implementation and funding.
Well, without being able to analyze on a project-by-project basis, I do want to recognize that in this particular fiscal year, the context really and truly had to deal with that the projects were in alignment, particularly with our roadmap to recovery and community recovery reports. And whilst I do acknowledge that some of them do sound like ideas that are not fully fleshed out, I think that it may be better that if we analyze, instead of generalizing them all into that category, if we analyze them on a case-by-case basis. With all due respect, ma'am.
So is it that the Ministry of Planning will go through some sort of exercise during this fiscal in preparation for the next one to put some of these projects on having maybe now noted the deficiencies in terms of ability to implement and execute, to strengthen these projects and make them implementable in the next fiscal?
That is correct, member. Only as recently as February 2022, Ministry of Planning and Development have started a workshop. They are interacting with various MDAs in respect of implementation of the PSIP and refocusing of projects, particularly to ensure their alignment with our national policy objectives. The R2R and the CRR. It's not R2R.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Member Mark, can I invite you now to join the conversation?
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, before I deal with some issues as it relates to the Ministry of Works and Transport, if I may seek your indulgence, I would like to ask the acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Planning and Development if he can share with us what are some of the factors or reasons for the heavy turnover of staff as it relates to the project management unit within the various ministries. What is driving persons to leave those particular offices and positions within the public service? Has any analysis, any studies, anything has been done to guide planning and development as it relates to that particular situation? May I ask the acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Planning and Development?
From the information that is available to the Ministry of Planning and Development at this time, it appears that the most popular factor or the most critical factor that may influence the heavy turnover that we've referred to seems to be the remuneration package that is associated with the respective position. Now, I may have indicated earlier that the Ministry of Planning and Development, having recognized this difference in remuneration across various MDAs, intends to make recommendations to strengthen the establishment such that the project management positions that exist across the public service may be standardized and therefore would all have the same remuneration package, and therefore would discourage the turnover that is currently reported as a result of that difference.
Would you want to clear or clarify for us how many project management officers would have either left their post in the last 3 years, maybe from 2019, 2020, 2021, and maybe up to the current time? What number are we really looking at?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't have that data at my fingertips at this particular point in time. If it is that it is possible, I would commit to try to provide that information in writing. Of course, it does require that the various ministries that would have reported this turnover may have to be consulted, especially if it's for the separate periods that you've requested being over different fiscal years.
Okay, thank you so very much. May I now go to the Ministry of Works and Transport? Now, we all know, and I'm directing this to the Permanent Secretary. Madam Chair, we know that the road transportation network is a virtual nightmare, horror story for many, many citizens and motorists. In fact, protests seem to be the order of the day in many communities because of the poor road maintenance, both by the Ministry of Works and Transport and the Ministry of Local and Rural Development. Now, I would like to get from the Ministry of Works and Transport and later local government, based on what I'm seeing before me, in fiscal 2021, some $666.3 million was allocated for continued enhancement of the road network. The road network inventory is some 2,135 kilometers in this country. What I would like to ask the Ministry of Works and Transport is what is being done with this allocation to really enhance our road network in this country? Can we get some answers from the Ministry of Works and Transport given this $666.3 million that was allocated? Can we get some clarification?
Thank you, member, for the question. I want to start by recognizing some of the statements that you made in the question. In the instance where there is a road network which is not meeting the needs of the communities that they are supposed to serve, the Ministry of Works and Transport is continuing to identify the areas to address roads as quickly as possible. We have asked that, understanding the frustrations in certain areas, that these areas be brought to light, our attention in a certain way, so that it does not further affect in a negative way the road network. I want to start with that. The sums of money that you are speaking to within the document speaks mainly to capital works, which means works which is bringing about an increase in the kilometers of road available to different communities. So therefore, it would include projects such as the South Highway, which is totally new roadway, Valencia to Toco, which includes totally new roadway, and it seeks to open up different quadrants of the country, mainly the east and to some extent the south. The ministry is also undertaking works which are of more current nature in terms of repaving, but also in terms of resheeting and rehabilitating. And some of that work is being done under our PSIP program as well as under our current program. We are more than willing to provide you with a full listing of all the roads that have been worked on by the ministry for the period 2020, October 2020 to September 2021. I'm not sure if you would like me to try to get some of the listings at this time to read it out, but we can provide you with the listing.
No, you can provide us with the listing in writing. Could you tell us, Permanent Secretary, what is the actual sum released? Well, first of all, the sum allocated to the Ministry of Works and Transport for repaving of existing roadways in our country for 2021. What was the sum allocated and what was the sum released? And what was the sum allocated in 2022 fiscal year and what has been released thus far?
Yes, member, I can provide you that in writing.
Would you also be able to indicate to this committee what specific projects were undertaken to enhance our road network and Transportation in 2021 and 2022. Would you want to put that in writing as well?
Well, remember, it is quite a number, so we can do that as well. They are listed in the PSIP, but under a number of the programs, we have individual projects. So, for instance, under project 247, I think we would have worked on approximately 57 plus roadways. So we can list them out and send them to you.
What about your contractors who undertook or undertake these projects? Have they been fully paid? And if not, why not?
So I can say that at this time, which we are in March, the majority of our contractors, if not all, would have been paid for works undertaken for the 2020-2021 period. As at the end of September 2021, there would have been some contractors not paid, and that would result based on the timing of when bills will be submitted to the Ministry for payment. Because once it's submitted, it has to be reviewed, there's a certification process, and then there would be a request for release process.
Yeah. Would you be kind enough to give us in writing the list of your contractors for 2020-2021? And when we come to 2021-2022, a list of contractors who have been paid and who are still owed. Could you provide us with that information in writing?
Yes, member. Just for clarity, it would be contractors from the 2020-2021 period who are still owed?
Well, in 2020-21, they have been paid for what you have said. Could you provide us with a list of those contractors within your operations? And then when it comes to 2021-2022, a list of your contractors and who have been paid and how much money is still owing to those contractors in your arrangement for roadworks and projects in 2021-2022 fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. I would like, Madam Chair, if you'd allow me to just ask the gentleman who is in charge of coastal protection programs in our country, given the high incidences of coastal erosion. We noted that in September of 2021, some 15 million would have been expended for payments to contractors and consultants, with outstanding requests for releases in the sum of some 13 million, 13 that is. Now, I would like to ask the person in charge of this program, the officer, are there any outstanding payments owed to contractors or consultants in terms of this program that we have for the coastal protection? Secondly, if there are outstanding payment, could you tell us what is the sum owed and how many contractors are owed monies for services provided thus far? Can I direct that to the official from the Ministry of Works and Transport, please?
So, Chair, PS, if I may, PSO. Okay, my name is Kerry Shepherd. For the fiscal year 2021, we had a allocation stated as releases were 19 million. Yeah, and we had a commitment, which is money owes, of a further 14,119,000. That's the amount owed. Further to that, we received some releases. We will submit the exact amount owed to the committee.
What about the contractors that were engaged by your unit or that the ministry would have contracted to deal with these matters of coastal erosion projects in our country? You have the list of contractors and the amount of monies they were paid and the amount of monies that are still outstanding?
Yes, that list will be supplied to.
Right. Could you provide us with an update on the percentage of works completed for fiscal 2021 under the Critical Coastal Protection Program? What percentage of the works have been completed as far as 2021 is concerned?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I have my shoreline management specialist here. He will answer this question.
Hi, good day. We have, in terms of the projects under the Critical Coastal Protection, the South Cocos Bay Shoreline Stabilization Works is 100% complete. The Captiville Shoreline Stabilization Works is currently 82% complete. The Matlat Shoreline Stabilization Works and San Souci all 100% complete, as is the Cocos Bay Shoreline Stabilization Works. The Comprehensive National Coastal Monitoring Program is in the final stages, very close to 100% complete. It's in the high 90s right now. The Little Rockley Bay Shoreline Stabilization Works also 100% complete. We haven't done anything on Labrador Beach Shoreline Stabilization because at present there's no critical erosion at this point, and we use the funds to help with the payments of other existing commitments. With regard to the Mayor Guire Coastal Management Program, we have the first project that will come on stream, which is the Canopash Shoreline Stabilization Works that we're expecting to start commencing within this month.
Okay. Madam Chair, I have two final questions for this round. I would like to ask, through the Permanent Secretary, whether she can provide us with an up-to-date response on the feasibility study for the fast ferry port in Toko. We understand that there was supposed to be an environmental impact assessment study completed. Could the PS provide us with a status report on that? And while she's preparing to do so, may I ask as well about the procurement and commissioning of one ship-to-shore gantry crane by the Port Authority in order to handle increased cargo capacity and efficiency at the Port Authority. Can I get clarification and guidance from the PS on these two matters?
Yes, Member Mark. In terms of the feasibility study, the fast ferry port in Toko, there was an EIA completed in January 2021. However, in fiscal year 2020, January 2020, but in fiscal 2021, the EMA requested the submission of additional data and analysis with respect to the response to the review and assessment report. At this time, there is a continuation of collection of data and submission of such data to the EMA with respect to the obtaining of a CUC. So the work in terms of the EIA continues on the that port. In respect of your second question, which is the gantry crane for the Port Authority was purchased in fiscal 2021, and just looking to see the commissioning date.
Through Chair, the crane was commissioned on the 7th of June 2021.
Yes. So remember, it was purchased and commissioned in June 2021.
Can you give us the value of that piece of equipment? What did it cost the taxpayers?
We can submit that to you in writing, members. Get the exact figure.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, can I ask the Permanent Secretary if she can provide us with a brief status report on the matter involving either the privatization, divestment, or some kind of partnership, PPP arrangement for the port of Port of Spain? Can the Permanent Secretary provide our committee with a little status report, and maybe she can put it in writing subsequently as to what is the status of that whole project?
Member Mark, the difficulty is that is not under PSIP either 2021 or 2022. So maybe that information you can obtain by another one of the mechanisms available for under interrogatories in Parliament. I'm sure you could get it. Okay.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and this again is to the PS Ministry of Works and Transport. I observed that in your submission, you all referred to one of the projects referred to Ministry of Works and Transport offices. That is project number 240. Were there 13 projects or less than 13 projects? Your submission suggests 13 projects. Okay, if I look at page 7 to page 9 of your submission.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so I might be misreading. Could you tell me what project is identified as number 7?
That is the project relating to the maintenance sub-office in Carenage.
Maintenance of sub-office in Carenage.
It's yes, the maintenance sub-office in Carenage. The Ministry of Works and Transport, as you know, we work on a district system as well as head office, and we have sub-offices across the country.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So there's just a mistaken numbering. That's all I really want to find out, if one was left out, because I have that as 8. So I just want to ensure that your listing is comprehensive or not.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So there were really 12 projects and not 13.
No, there are 13 projects. I'm not sure if...
Okay, so what I will do,
yes,
I'll give you an opportunity to look at it and see whether there are 12 or 13, because what we'd like to is a status of each of those projects as of today and the time frame for completion. Okay, right? Because if what you're identifying as 7 is 8, as you quoted here, either 1 is missing or there are 12. But when you present it in writing, you'll get an opportunity to see what my concern is.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And I will now invite Member Webster Roy to join the conversation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, just a follow-up question to what Member Mark asked about postal protection measures. In the response to Member Mark, it was noted that a number of projects were completed. I wanted to understand if out of the projects completed, including Little Rockley Bay, if the same system and same measures were used, that's one. 2, if they've seen any relief from the measures, any improvements, and 3, if the structural integrity of the coastal protection measures are being monitored on an ongoing basis, please. That's my first set of questions.
Okay, member, can you repeat the questions, please?
You would have noted that a number of projects were completed, including Little Rock Bay, am I correct?
Correct.
And the coastal protection measures?
Yes.
I wanted to understand if the system or technology used were the same across all the projects that were completed as one, and if you have noticed any relief or any improvement since the projects were completed, that's 2, and 3, if there's ongoing monitoring of the structural integrity of the protection measures on a continuous basis.
Yes, we have ongoing monitoring of the projects. We have drone flights scheduled. We have engineering checks. We have, if we notice breaches, we have a maintenance schedule. Well, Mr. Amaran will answer the rest of the questions.
Yes, hi. To answer your questions in conjunction with Mr. Shepherd said, we have a regular maintenance we have an inventory of our coastal protection structures. So roughly every fortnight we do some drone flights or inspection of one or more of these structures. Now, to answer the first question about the design criteria, because I hope you can appreciate that, because some of the design consultancies would have been done by different consultants, the criteria tends to vary slightly from consultant to consultant. But overall, the standards of the coastal protection unit, the main design resources are the same. So it's not a wide gulf in the criteria itself. And to give you an example of one inspection work and maintenance, we are close to going out to tender with the repair of the Manzanilla Beach facility at the access ramp, where we have PVC sheet piles that have gotten broken over time, whether it's due to vandalism or impact with debris and so on, right? As regards the structures, we also send members of staff to inspect like the rocks that we have in the rubble structures, so you can see if there's any settlement, there's any sinking, there's any removal of the rocks and so on. I hope I answered all your questions.
You seen any relief, the measures, are they working?
Okay, right. So as far as we have heard, and we're very proud about our Cocos Bay projects in Manzanilla, that stretch of coastline has not flooded. And in fact, we dare say that it has actually increased the amount of local tourism at the edge of the River mouth, because you see a lot of people posting pictures on social media with the wall that we put up there. So that and the areas in Captiville that have been constructed, we don't see any flooding to the extent that we've completed it, right? So we have to complete the remaining lengths to address that entire shoreline stretch. And I would assume that the same is the case for the projects we've done in the North Coast as well.
As it pertains to Little Rock Bay, any reports in terms of not only the hotel, but the residents or persons traveling in that area, they have seen any improvements?
Well, we're very aware of like so many complaints about Little Rock Bay, right? But therein lies a tale in the sense that the purpose of a breakwater is to sediment the bay. So you want to increase the width of the beach, right? So people complaining about the lack of bathing area by the rocks don't understand the function of a breakwater. Now, that said, we have further plans in the pipeline to augment the entire coastline, right? But that little part shows that the breakwater is functioning for the purpose, which is making a wider beach, right? So what we hope is that in the other sections of the shoreline, there will be more of a tourist-friendly, accessible area. and there will be more of a reduction of the erosion as was originally planned from the start. That's back in the days on the screen.
Okay, thank you so much. Madam Chair, one other question on this pertaining to the port. So, and I think it might go to the PS. It was noted in your submission that 5 foam fenders were acquired and installed at the Scarborough port. I wanted to know what was the procurement process and the overall cost for the 5 foam fenders.
Remember the procurement process, it would have gone through the port's tender rules and regulation and procurement process. We can provide you with the individual contractor and the individual customer.
I didn't get the last part. What did you say about the cost? Sorry.
We can provide you with the contractor and the individual customer.
Okay then. Thank you, Madam PS.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to ask, I saw something that piqued my interest on this. I'm directing this both to Ministry of Works and Transport and the Ministry of Public Utilities because I'm not too sure of where this falls. In the submission, the Ministry of Works and Transport was saying that in response to the number of incidents of flooding per year, the ministry's drainage division is tasked with the responsibility of maintaining major rivers, riverine, and tributary water courses. But it doesn't maintain a record of such data. And I wanted to know, what was the reason for them not maintaining a record of the data of maintenance and therefore flooding, how that helps them plan, if it militates against their planning and track it.
Chairman, I am just looking at for the page, but what we would have said is that we would not be, the incidence of flooding for a year would not only result from areas of major rivers, riverine, and tributary water courses. Now, the areas that flood related to that, we would have the information at our various district offices, and also it would be that information that goes into our planning process in terms of silting and in terms of our works under our 28 and some of our capital programs. But we do not necessarily see ourselves as being a repository of all incidents of flooding within the country. That is information we were seeking to convey, Madam Chair.
Okay, but as far as your maintenance records, you do have data relating to that?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So on the other hand now, the Ministry of Public Utilities is saying to us that flood management falls under the remit of the Ministry of Works and Transport. However, the Ministry of Public Utilities has been collaborating with the Ministry of Works and Transport to explore the potential for establishing dual-purpose reservoirs to capture and store floodwaters, thereby mitigating flooding while simultaneously augmenting the water resources available for treatment and subsequent distribution. So it seems to me that if flood management, the Ministry of Public Utilities says flood management is under you, it seems to me some confusion where that lies. And then secondly, this collaboration that the Ministry of Public Utilities speaks about that is going to start or has started. I want to know what progress has been made on that. And it could go to you and both to the Ministry of Public Utilities, not necessarily Ministry of Works and Transport.
So maybe I need to start here. The statement by the Ministry of Public Utilities in terms of flood management as it relates to major rivers, riverine and tributary water courses, yes, we have identified that that is our limit. And we have started to work with the Ministry of Public Utilities. I think Mr. David may be able to, I'm not sure if he's online, but we have started to work with the Ministry of Planning Utilities, Ministry of Public Utilities throughout the drainage division.
So that will be with Mr. David. Is that not local government?
Sorry, yes. But I believe local government will also be part of it, but I'll have my drainage director just give a little more detail on what we have done so far.
Okay, thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. What PSIP has alluded to is that Ministry of Works will be in charge of flood mitigation and management of water in that aspect. Ministry of Public Utilities would be in charge of like water harvesting and collecting water, and that aspect of it would be done by them. However, when it comes to flooding and reservoirs and all the different ideas that help to control the water, yes, there is a collaboration that is starting, but it's in very, very early stages. Hasn't been fleshed out totally because the responsibilities of the WRA and the public utilities and water and our responsibilities as Ministry of Works and Transport need to be clearly defined, and so that we don't have confusion when it comes to the management of the water, the excess runoff due to riverine major water courses, and the water harvesting aspect due to WRA.
Okay, so could you therefore, Ms. Badalu Durga, I could understand that we're just maybe 4 or 5 months from, well, more than that, because we're now in the month of March. So we are 6 months from September. Could you give us some kind of timeline with respect to when this is going to move from its very, very early conceptual stages to something that the people of Trinidad and Tobago could see some tangible results?
So that I would not be able to answer that time because it really is spearheaded by the Ministry of Public Utilities.
It's spearheaded by the Ministry of Public Utilities?
Yes.
Yeah, so then maybe I could therefore direct the question to Ms. Duke.
Good afternoon, Chair. I will have to give you that timeline in writing. What I can offer you now is some of the activity that the Ministry of Public Utilities is already looking at in terms of the harvesting of those flood waters. And one of the projects that we are looking to make this a reality, if you would like that.
Okay, so just before you go there, in terms of this collaboration, because it's in your submission, okay, that this collaboration is referred to, what steps have you envisaged for this being more than just an idea that has been put on paper, but for it to, because I think the Ministry of Works and Transport appear to be ready to do their part, but they need you to furnish them with some sort of outline of this idea for it to start to get life. So yes, I'm interested to hear what you're doing about harvesting of water, but I'm also very interested in that this project, which appears to be a good idea doesn't just remain as 5 lines on a submission to us.
Okay, Chair, this collaboration would have come out of and been fueled by a previous inquiry into water security, in which several of the ministries would have given contributions, and I believe they are all represented here today. As far as I'm aware, we would have had some initial meetings with both Rural Development and Ministry of Works and Transport. We at the Ministry of Public Utilities are at this time quite clear in terms of what are the roles of the various parties, the Met Office, WASA, and the WRA. And I believe the point that we are at now is forming those memorandums of understanding so that we all are clear on what each entity, each ministry is responsible for and how we move forward with the collaboration. So that is the next step. And as I indicated, we will provide you in writing with how we move forward with that and what is the timeline we see for actually implementing and executing on our collaboration.
Thank you very much. PS. I now call upon Mrs. Morris Julian. I recognize you and I thank you for being so patient.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You actually asked a lot of the questions that I was very interested in, and I'm glad to know that the answers will be forthcoming. Madam Chair, through you to the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. I know we discussed briefly drainage with the Ministry of Works, but I would just like to clarify to PS Bascom, is the drainage cleaning program ongoing with the Ministry of Local Government?
Okay, put that question on to my deputy PS, who will report on the corporations. DPS?
Thank you very much, Member. Just to respond directly to your question, if I'm correct, you are inquiring about the drainage cleaning exercise.
Yes.
Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, I'm asking specifically in regards to the partnership and the collaboration in the Ministry of Works, because this would definitely lead to flooding and flooding issues. So I would just like some clarification from your end. What is happening, please?
Okay, thank you. Let me say that this is a very critical issue that you are raising here this afternoon because of the tragedy that occurs in many different communities in Trinidad as it relates to flooding. As I am aware, there is no formal relationship right now with the Ministry of Works and Transport as it relates to planning to address the drainage issue that especially impacts upon certain corporations. Right. What I can also tell you is that the corporations are responsible for maintaining minor water courses and through their recurrent programs. The issue of drainage is also mitigated through the corporations engaging under the drainage and irrigation program that falls under the PSIP, where paved drains are constructed. What I would really like to suggest at this particular forum is that some formal strategy be undertaken in partnership with the Ministry of Works and Transport, and I've been hearing that the Ministry of Public Utilities also has a role to play. If there can be this partnership between these three ministries and also include the municipal corporations in this exercise, I believe that we'll be able to, make a dent into some of the damages that are and the ravages that are being done in some of our communities through flooding in Trinidad. I also want to state that the corporations themselves, there is this mechanism where there is a monthly regional coordinating committee, and that could be an excellent forum through which these agencies can, deal with the issue of drainage and other issues as well in a more specific manner. The corporations I know would be the best agency to identify what the problem is, where the problems exist, so that we'll be able to develop a very effective strategy, especially since we are now in the dry season, saying that with a pinch of salt because of the weather we've been having recently. But I think that if, we can really partner early to address some of these challenges. I'm not saying that the cleaning of drains, the silting or the dredging of major water courses would be the ultimate solution. That is not the case, but it definitely will make some significant impact in addressing flooding. I don't know if I will have answered your question.
Thank you very much. I think that in answering my question, we are seeing a gap that definitely needs to be looked into, the communication aspect. Through you, Madam Chair, I would just like to go on to, again, natural disasters. Now, I am from local government initially, so I'm very familiar with the community center concept. And currently, more shelters are being made available to persons affected by natural disasters. Diego Martin South, Bagatelle, Chicklin, Freeport, Taruba, Guayagorari, Mayaro, Arima, Quarry Village, Laloon, and Taradale. Can I find out how many shelters were available before? Can you let us know how many more shelters were made available to persons affected by natural disasters? And I'd also like to know, what is the usual length of time can someone be facilitated in a shelter? What is the number of persons that usually utilize these facilities? And could you also give us the costs associated with the provision and the maintenance of these facilities? And I'll also like to know, what exactly do you provide? Mattresses, blankets, food items? And has the ministry identified any additional area for the establishment of shelter facilities for fiscal 2022?
Senior Disaster Coordinator, Mr. Jerry David.
Member, that's a mouthful, quite a bit of us. And I can answer all of your questions. Whether I can answer all of the questions within this sitting, I don't know, but I would attempt. But you can definitely get those answers in writing. Okay?
Sure, Chairman. Let me assure you, whatever you cannot answer, we'll accept it in writing. Thank you.
Fantastic. There are about 425 shelters or buildings that have been designated as shelters. Now, I have to say that and make a distinction here. We have no purpose-built shelters in Trinidad, but we have buildings that we use as shelters. So that and the capacity of the shelters again is dependent upon the particular hazards that we are dealing with. For instance, because of COVID-19, we have had to establish COVID-compliant shelters, whereas the capacity in a community center may have been 100 before we had COVID-19. It is now cut down to less than half because of social distancing and because of the space we now have to give for where we can put our cots. In addition to that, we did not have to establish medical treatment areas. Some people call it isolation areas. We like to call it medical treatment areas in a community center. So we have had to take space that we would normally use had it not been COVID-19 and create other areas. In addition to that, we have had to put in the signage, which we have done for 70 shelters, 5 for each municipal corporation. Our aim, because we think that COVID-19 is now going to be endemic, so we have to learn to live with it. So the aim is to set another 70 being COVID compliant. You ask about what we put in the shelters, cots, blankets, and even some of the 5 shelters have shelter bins. In these shelter bins, you would find boots and ropes, even chainsaws, and a range of other PPEs at that community center. You asked about feeding. Now that's a big one. That's a big one. I've had experiences where we have had in the past to have the national school feeding program. They had assisted in when there was something major in feeding, but we have done something a little unique at the municipal corporations. We have attached NGOs, FBOs, and CBOs to each community center, so that if you are, in your case, Arima, where you work, where you are, we would have had NGOs from that community, and we would have asked them to help us and assist us with part of the feeding. So that's a unique one we are using because we're trying to get more community volunteers attached to that particular community center. You also asked another question. Those are the ones I remember now. If you can juggle my memory a bit, I'll be able to answer all of them. I think I picked up quite a bit of what you asked in my answer. All of this, I can put it in writing for you. Even the ones that I answered orally, I will put it in writing for you so you have a clear idea of what we are doing. The new ones, yes, you asked about the new ones. Diego Martin, the one at Bagatelle. You asked about the one that's the one in 4 Roads there, that's South Diego Martin. Yes, you asked about Taradale. Yes, and there are several other community centers that were going to be new ones. So what we did, in addition to that, we wrote to the Ministry of Community Development then, whose responsibility it was for community centers. And we asked them if we could train the board of each community center so that they became the shelter managers. And last year we trained 629 of those people, of those individuals. It means that they have a special interest, a vested interest in seeing those community centers run well. We decided to make those committees the shelter managers. And that has turned out well because when we brought in shelter managers in the past into a community center from outside that community, we had a little pulling and tugging there. I can understand why. If you train the folks who are the community council, in charge of the community center, the facilities managers, they are the best shelter managers. We have done that. We started that last year, and we trained 629 throughout the country. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much, and through you again, Madam Chair. I'm really happy that you brought up that, sir, because that jogged my memory regarding CIT volunteers. I think it's an excellent program that the ministry has, because I know all too well that councillors and even the minister in the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government are very often first responders, first on the scene. So this CIT program that the councillors are doing, could you just elaborate for us about this particular program and how does it positively or not impact on our disaster response?
Thank you very much. When you talk CIT volunteers, then you are coming down my alley. CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. This is where we train ordinary people how to recognize, respond, and recover from disasters. What we are doing here is making the community responsible, prepared, give them the skills they need. If there's a major disaster and areas have been totally cut off, and remember, in a major disaster, no one may be coming for 72 hours to that community. It may be totally cut off. It may take a week. It may mean that first responders will be concentrating at that time on critical facilities. How, if the hospital is impacted, all the attention will be there, the police stations, all the critical facilities. So we want the communities to be better prepared. Last year, we're talking about 2021, we were able to train some 600, 800 CERT volunteers because we did it virtually. We had CERT training for the general public. Then we had CERT training for men only because we found that 75% of the folks who were applying to do the CERT virtual programs, they were women. Thankfully, God bless you. But we had to bring in now, find a way to attract some men. So we asked for men only. We got about 150 persons who applied to do it. We did the training, about 80 of them completed the exercise. We did it, we are starting one this Saturday. 500 persons have applied, 75% are women. So we will have to go again and ask, do another program for men only. And that's not a problem, we're prepared to do that. So that we are working together in the communities, and now that we are freeing up a little more, and I must tell this August committee that it's difficult to do virtual training. Easy for us to do the lecture, but each person who is doing the program has to give us almost 15 videos of the skills that we have been teaching. And myself and others have to sit hours on end looking. Let's imagine we have 200 persons and each one of them has to give us 10 videos of themselves and doing the skills that we have taught. That's 2,000 videos. And somebody has to sit down and watch all of them. Thankfully, we are going back into the age where the time when we can mix a little more, so we can actually bring them together in small groups and do the skills, so we wouldn't have to do the videos. But we are well advanced in the area of CERT training, and we will continue at the ministry year after year after year. And by the time I am gone, maybe 10% of the population will be CERT trained. Thank you very much. I hope my answers were.
Thank you very much, sir. Madam Chair, if you would just permit me one more question, please. With regard to the purchase of an amphibious vehicles. Now I'm asking this, Madam Chairman, because I was there during the Greenville floods. And the floods that happened in Greendale was duplicated, replicated in Bamboo, in Brazil, Talparo. That particular year, climate change really showed us who was the boss. And local government in particular had a very difficult time. And I think they did do their best, and I think they should have really been lauded a lot more for what they did. But because I was in a situation at the time, amphibious vehicles, I see that there was supposed to be a purchase of amphibious vehicles, radio, public address system, but no action has been taken towards the procurement of the vehicle. I saw that the radios were procured. Can anybody tell me why no action has been taken to procure these vehicles, and when will these vehicles be purchased?
Now that's a question that I was anticipating. When I presented this question about the amphibious vehicle to the minister, the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Honorable Kazim Hussain, he was head over heels, he was enthusiastic about, yes, we should get this. We then looked at the cost of it, and the cost was quite, it was costly. So we went out now to look at, to see if we could get donors. We asked them to see if they could get donors, the minister and his people, if we could get donors from overseas to bring in the amphibious vehicles. I am still hopeful that we can get donations of them. They are pretty expensive. When we looked at them, some of them touched down on almost $3 million for one. We were thinking about maintenance of it. We were thinking about training the individuals to operate it. Quite a bit of those questions came. The Port of Spain City Corporation actually allocated some $500,000 2021 to purchase an amphibious vehicle. Because of the supply chain problem, I knew that they will not be able to get it in and have it in bond and all that for any at all. So that particular project did not come to fruition because of the supply chain issues, and what they were trying to purchase was a small one. I know what you're talking about is what I have seen on YouTube and in some of the other areas where people sell these vehicles, and they have buses that you can drive through water and pick people up, and amphibious buses, amphibious vehicles, and bring people out, and you can drive it on the road and take the folks to the shelter. Yes, they are available. It's a dream, member. It's a dream that I have, and I hope that in a not too distant future, I can convince my PS that it's a worthy investment.
So, Mr. David, maybe you could have the PS answer the question about the funding or the programming.
Well,
Thank you for that.
We have a plan B, and we have been encouraging some of the corporations to utilize dinghies and boats. So that is plan B.
Excuse me, PS, I think you're maybe a little far from the mic, so you're very muffled.
While we wait for the allocation of funds for the amphibious vehicles, we are utilizing a plan B where some of the corporations have begun acquiring dinghies. So it will do the same function of going into the impacted area and retrieving some of the purchases.
So you have no allocation for fiscal 2022?
No,
for this? Okay, and while we have you all here, Mr. David was so eloquent about the training of the CERT volunteers and so on. So maybe you all could tell us a bit about the program for the training of community monitors, which you all intend to commence, all again with the aid of alleviating the hardships that people suffer when there's flooding.
Okay, Madam Chair, you're speaking about the community hydrological observers. Yes, that's part of the program now, and this came about because of the community flood early warning system that this ministry actually initiated together with the Red Cross and the Water Resource Agency.
So when is the training likely to commence? Because I heard what you said about the difficulties in training people remotely. So in terms of this project and this collaboration, if you could give us an idea of when this training is going to commence, how many people you're targeting, and in what areas, because you referred to 7 flood-prone areas, so if you all could also identify the areas.
Okay, we have areas from, one is in Indigo Martin, Madam Chair, it's best I give you that in writing, and I can't recall all up top of my head, but there's a program, and that program starts next, we are starting CERT training this Saturday, Sunday. The following Saturday, which will take us to the, Tammy, on that date, we are starting the community hydrological training. What that module is being done by the Water Resource Agency. There are not only the 7 projects you're referring to is part of a project that the UNDP sponsored with some $500,000 for these 7 projects. But they were actually piggybacking on 13 other stream flow stations that the ministry had started. It started 3 years ago. And we have 13 stream flow stations. UNDP is adding another 7 stream flow stations so that we are to train, they have asked for 30 community hydrological observers in each of the areas where we have stream flow stations. So you can see that we have, right now, this particular project here, which starts on Saturday, is aimed at getting 210 community hydrological observers. We have 500 persons who are registered to do the program already on Saturday, and they will be part of it.
Okay, so thank you. So in writing, if you can give us a brief synopsis of what the steam flow station is, how it aids the early flood warning system, your fuse, and if you could give us the listing of the 13 flood-prone areas that you talk about. Is 13 and 7 or 6 and 7?
13 and 7, 20.
So that's 20. If you could identify them, and I'd also like to know if you could give us in writing if those are the only flood-prone areas in Trinidad and Tobago. If not, how many others, and what your plans are for that. We'll take that in writing. Okay, thank you. Okay, I now invite Member Dionarine and I thank you again for being so patient to join the conversation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to turn to Ministry of Public Utilities, and in your submission to your written responses to our questions, you would have indicated on page 4, question 3, that the current percentage of the population that has 24/7 access to water supply is 22.83% in Trinidad and 20.42% in Tobago. And of course, according to the PSIP targets that you all outlined, there was a target for 2021 to increase the percentage of the population that receives 24/7 water supply by 10% in 2021. So we asked a question with respect to where we are with achieving this target. And the response was, and I quote, currently WASA is focused on measures to meet the minimum requirement of the RIC of 24/2, which is 2 days for the week, and thereafter to improve the class of service provided to each community to achieve the 24/7 goal. So I just wanted to get some clarification. Is it that we no longer was trying to meet that target of increasing 24/7 water supply by 10%, and we moved towards trying to achieve water supply 2 days for the week for everyone?
No, member. I'm not sure whether you are reading from someone else's submission. The quote that you gave about going to 24/2, I was looking for it here. I haven't seen it, but I'll ask.
It's on page 2 of your submission.
I'll ask my project manager who deals with WASA to indicate to you where we are at this present time.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Member. Yes, as it pertains to the percentage increase that you have quoted there, I would say that we can get the exact increase in writing. However, I would say that the ministry, in collaboration with WASA, has taken on several projects within the PSIP to help to increase the water supply to residents from 24/3 and 24/4 to 24/7. And we have done that in many specific categories. One is our strategic objective in providing water to underserved and unserved communities, where we are able to hook rural communities up to the water connection that would the main connection that will be coming towards close areas, and we have done that throughout the country in different zones in fiscal 2021. I would also say that we have done one of the other strategic areas where we were able to help to increase the water supply was to establish a number of projects dealing with the transmission and distribution of water to various communities, which dealt with the refurbishment and also the establishment of boosters. We have also dealt with another strategic area, which is the refurbishment and development of water treatment plants, because what we had found was some of our treatment plants, there were various structural deficiencies and leaks and so forth that had actually impacted the water supply to many residents. So we'd be currently working on, we actually completed water treatment plants in Maloney and other areas for fiscal 2021. What I would also say is that one of the other strategic areas that we had looked at from the ministry to help to increase the supply was the reduction of non-revenue water, which means water where there are a lot of leaks and so forth. And we have dealt a lot with the repairing of pipelines. So that is basically what the ministry would have done pertaining to helping to increase resident supply from 24/3 and 24/4 to 24/7. But what I can do in terms of the exact figures, in terms of the outcome of the increase, the percentage, we can supply that in writing to you.
Okay, so just may I interject? In terms of the initiatives you're giving us in fiscal 2021 that you said would have increased. In your submission, you're telling us that the current percentage of population that has access to 24/7 water supply, Trinidad 24%, Tobago 8%. So these initiatives that you speak of, which are also contained in your submission, have those initiatives resulted in the 24% and the 8%? Or have those initiatives resulted in a greater percentage? And therefore, what is that? And I also want to ask, in your own submission, you have said to us, WASA's current system of measuring the flow of water leaving the production facilities and traversing the supply network is inadequate. That's under your non-revenue water. So if you are telling us that in your submission, then how do you base your increase to any percent, 10 or any? So if in what you're going to address, if you address it comprehensively in terms of this information that you have given to us, okay?
Madam Chair, we will undertake to do that and outline based on our 2021 allocation and execution the areas in which we would have moved from 24/3 to 24/7, etc., and give you the percentages for each of those initiatives.
All right, so it is very likely then your submission on page 4 is not reflective of the end of your fiscal 2021 position, I guess. Okay, but we'll await.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I now invite Member Mark to join the discussion, followed by Member Webster Roy. I thank you both for waiting so patiently.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to continue along the lines of WASA. Can I ask the personnel here, the personnel present, if they can provide us with details on the plan for the establishment of what they have called district metered areas? And is there a time frame for the operationalization of these same district meter areas and the projected costs for the implementation of same? Can someone guide us on this?
Thank you, member. I'll ask my project manager to respond.
Yes. We have a program relating to metering in terms of water that comes within our water infrastructure and those that leave. We are currently in procurement to get contractors to provide the services for the installation of those metering systems. Speaking with WASA, we understand that the procurement is currently taking place. It should be completed within this month. And from there, they indicated that it should take approximately 4 to 6 months for completion of that particular project.
Now, could you elaborate on whether this would mean a nationwide program of metering through this mechanism? Is it going to be nationwide, or is it going to be confined to a few districts?
Yes. Well, first of all, this particular program is geared towards our water infrastructure, mainly the water treatment plants, because we have to assess water that could possibly be lost, or we want to assess the water that is leaving the plants to the residents to kind of ascertain in terms of having enough water or having all our water reach the residents. Now, this is pertaining to our water infrastructure. As it pertains to residents, that is something that I would ask my PS if we could provide that in writing to you.
So member, just for clarity, this does not speak to domestic metering, right? We are not treating with that right now at this point in time at all. This district metered areas speaks to, as the project manager said, speaks to us looking at our infrastructure, WASA looking at its infrastructure, and being able to ascertain how the water is being channeled. So for instance, you would put it in certain of its infrastructure to gauge whether the production is actually reaching the customers or clients. When these areas are metered and you produce water, you will then know, based on the water that has reached its destination, how much water has been lost and where you need to channel your investigations in order to see what is preventing the water from reaching where it needs to go. So those are what the district meters are about, not about domestic or residential metering. Just to clarify.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I just want to go to air transport at this time and turn my attention to the Ministry of Works and Transport once again. We have been advised that some $43 million was allocated in fiscal 2021 for the development of infrastructure and safety requirements at our nation's airport facilities. in keeping with international civil aviation requirements. Some 20.7 million was expended on the following: replacement of the existing perimeter chain link fence around the airport estate, that is Piaco Airport, with new security fence in accordance with the Trinidad and Tobago Civil Aviation Authority security audit compliance requirements, and the paving of runway and taxiway at the Arthur Napoleon Raymond Robinson International Airport at Crown Point in Tobago. Can the Ministry of Works and Transport, through the Permanent Secretary, provide us with a status report on these particular works or projects, please?
Yes, member, I will ask Mr. Barr from the Airports Authority to give us a brief.
Good afternoon, Chair and members and all present. The project for the A&R Robinson Airport paving, it has been, the work on it has been completed in terms of the paving of the A&R Robinson Airport. When it comes to the fencing at the Piaco International Airport has been completed. There's one small area that work will be completed at a later date because there's a flooding issue that goes outside of the boundaries of the Airports Authority. But both the A&R Robinson paving project and the airport fencing project are substantially completed. 99% of the work in the fencing has been completed, and the small area to be for additional work will be completed when a permanent solution for the flooding in that area just outside our boundaries is achieved.
Can you share with us what was the cost of the paving of the A&R Robinson Airport at Crown Point and the cost for the fence, the security chain fence, thus far?
Sure. The paving at A&R Robinson Airport was $54.7 million, and the fencing amounts to approximately 19 million. $19 million for the fencing.
Can you provide this committee with the name of the successful contractors for both projects?
Yes, the successful contractor for the paving at the A&R Robinson Airport was Siram Brothers. There were 4 contractors involved in the in the fencing. One package was done by Ali Mejan Limited. Second package was done by Harry Prasad and Son. The third package was done by McClatchy Construction, and a fourth by Amnesty Limited.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I just want to go on to PTSC, where we are advised that PTSC was allocated a sum of $14.2 million in fiscal 2021 to continue the development of infrastructure to enhance service and reliability to customers. However, because of the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, this project was delayed in terms of implementation, with the sum of some 7.5 million being finally expended from the allocation. Can I ask for some clarification on what works were undertaken using the $7.5 million from the 2021 allocation, and how has the development of infrastructure enhanced service and reliability to customers, and what indicators and or criteria were used to evaluate the corporation's efficiency. Can we get some clarification on those matters?
Member, is it possible for you to provide us the page of the submission that you're referring to? I asked that because under the PSIP, the PTSE has a number of projects for the 2021 period, inclusive of upgrade to a number of the bus terminals, as well as initiating work on
What I shall do, PS, is to submit it in writing, so you can respond in writing. Okay? The other one I would like to go to is traffic management, which is very, very important in our country. Could you tell us why no funds were expended on the traffic management program, which was submitted by you? And could you tell us what is the status of the traffic management program, and how many staff are employed under this program, and what is the plan of works that you have under this program? 4 simple questions.
Yes. So, remember, under the Ministry of Works and Transport, we have traffic management measures under a number of projects. I believe the project that you're referencing is a part of our bridges, landslip, and traffic management program. Under that particular program, a number of projects were identified. There was an issue in the procurement process, which resulted in a non-award in 2021 under that particular program. That matter has since been addressed, and it is expected that 2 of the packages will be awarded in 2022. Other than that program, that project that you're referencing, we also have traffic management measures under our PURE program, which is under 247 project, as well as on the traffic management branch of the ministry, where we have done other programs. Projects that we've implemented included the marking of white lines, the implementation of barriers along a number of the nation highways, and the implementation of a number of traffic measures.
And the final question I'd like to raise, PS, through the chair, with regard to the installation of CCTV cameras at both PIACO and ANR to meet the security requirements of the Airport Authority and national security agencies. We recognize that there were, due to competing demands, the funding allocated to this project was transferred to other critical and ongoing works. That is what we have been advised. Could you provide details on the projects these funds were directed to? That is one. What is your expected time frame for the completion of the installation of CCTV TV cameras at both Piaco and A&R Robinson Airport? Could you provide details on the other critical and ongoing works and the sum of funds allocated to these works? And finally, what is the total sum allocated for this project in fiscal 2022? These are some of the issues, PS, I'd like you to clarify for us. And if possible, you can also commit these things to writing. We'll appreciate as well. But if you can give us a tight summary of what has happened, why did we reallocate funds that were designed to install critically needed CCTV cameras at both Piaco and A&R, and they were diverted in other directions? What were these projects we use that money for? And when are we going to install the CCTV cameras for both Piaco and A&R?
So, member, as indicated, we will provide you with something in detail in writing, but I will ask Mr. Barr from the Airports Authority to just give a general review.
Thank you, yes. Remember, the Airports Authority is very cognizant of the importance of security and safety at our airports. And the records would show that our request for funding for the CCTV was actually in the vicinity of $9 million. Out of that $9 million that was requested, $2 million was allocated to Airports Authority for the period 2020 to 2021. At the same time, safety is also a very important issue. And there was work being done at the A&R Robinson Airport for paving. And that is extremely important when you think about the fact that the economy of Tobago is so heavily dependent on tourism. So given the fact that there was not sufficient allocation to do the investment in the CCTV upgrade that we needed to, that $2 million of the funds for CCTV was put into completing the work on the paving at the A&R Robinson. The authority continues to request the funding for CCTV, and we will continue to make our request for the allocation, but it is recognized that at least $9 million will be required for the sort of work that we believe is needed. And in the time, we will continue to put all the measures in place to mitigate risk as best as possible and to manage with the equipment that we have.
Can you tell this committee, finally, how much money would have been allocated to the Airports Authority in the 2022 budget, fiscal, our fiscal package, I should say, for this particular project? And if you had no money allocated, or if a small amount was allocated, what efforts are we making to ensure that that $9 million is provided, given the importance, as you rightly pointed out, and given the high standing that our airport is held by the international bodies? I would like to know what real serious efforts are being made to get that $9 million so we can have our airports lit up in the context of CCTV for security purposes. I'd like you to clarify, and after you, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Works and Transport.
So, member, maybe I can start, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So, this fiscal 2022, I believe we have an allocation of approximately $2 million under this particular item. The Airports Authority has been advised to undertake preparatory work, which would be ensuring that the tender documents are done to a standard that they can be issued, and to initiate that work for this particular program. We have also asked for a timeline for implementation from the point of award to the point of final installation, so that while we have 2 million, we understand that we may not need a full 9 million in this fiscal, and we have identified that as one of those projects that is in the mid-year review for requests for the difference between the 2 million and 9 million that may be required for this financial year.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, so can I invite now Member Webster Roy, and after Member Webster Roy, Member Diunarai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions would be around WASA. The Ministry of Public Utilities noted that a supplemental allocation of 16 million was made to the Community Water Improvement Program in the mid-year review of fiscal 2021 budget. A total of 22 projects were approved for execution with a mix of in-house and external resources. Work on all projects would have begun at the time of you submitting your responses to the committee. At the time of your submission, it was stated that 4 projects would have been completed and that invoice submission would have been delayed due to difficulties in sourcing heavy equipment and materials and extended delivery times. What is the current status of the 18 remaining projects? That's 1. What additional expenses have been incurred as a result of the delays? That's 2. Was the supplemental funding sufficient to complete the projects? After that, those questions are answered, I'll ask the other one, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Thank you for those questions, Member. I'll ask the project manager to update the committee.
Minister, based upon your question, I would just give you an update of those projects. From 2021, out of those projects that you have spoken about, we can proudly say we were able to complete 9 projects. They were in the areas of Comparo, Sandy Grande, Caripi Chima, Freeport, Mayaro, Pitch Road, Movant, Subda Trace, La Romaine, Chamflair, Monroe, Williamsville, Windy Hill, and Upper Wharf Trace. What I can also say is that we are still currently trying to finish those other projects, and we are, I would say, in a very good stage to complete those projects very soon. But as it pertains to 2019, we were able to complete those 9 projects under that said program. So, sorry, for 2021.
So only 9 of the 18 that you had remaining you were able to complete? Or is 9 plus the 4
Within fiscal 2021, yes, I can definitely say that we will be able to complete the rest very soon. We normally have weekly meetings with WASA, and not only with the WASA directors, but also with the support staff of procurement, of legal, the project managers on the individual projects. And we have made considerable progress. We had encountered several issues in with the projects, several setbacks. Some stuff we had encountered as it pertains to the procurement of machinery and equipment, but nevertheless, we estimate that we should be able to finish the rest of those projects within the coming month.
So you initially had a target of 22 projects. you're going to meet your target. You said you had some setbacks in terms of equipment, etc. What measures have been put in place to prevent future occurrence of you setting a target and then not meeting that target? What are you going to do to improve on that?
Yes. So one of the things that we try to basically do is to get more information pertaining to the suppliers that will supply the necessary equipment, even if it is that we may not necessarily go with them, but we try to garner a bit more of the suppliers that would provide whatever particular type of equipment, so that even when we continue procurement, if we do not get from one supplier, we'll be able to retain the particular type of equipment from another supplier and so forth. We have also put systems in place in terms of WASA, where we try to do a lot of lean management in terms of the time frame in which we would procure stuff. And that's why I say that we have the meetings weekly, and we have the support staff where they would, whether it's a purchase order or whatnot, that they would actually move even faster than what would happen in the normal realm to get these things to the ministry so that the releases can be given so that they can do procurement for whatever equipment is needed so that we can do it at a faster pace.
Is it safe to assume that you have had cost overruns because of the delays and setbacks?
At this time, Minister, no.
Okay. So they would be able to complete projects with the funding allocated?
Definitely, Minister.
Okay, I'm good. The other area I want to go on to leak repairs. Every time I walk my constituency, and this is not a Tobago situation, I think this is a national situation, you would see pipes leaking constantly, and then when you engage persons, they say, we reported it to WASA, nothing has been done as yet. However, in your submission, it was stated that WASA continues to engage in a program of high leakage pipeline replacement, as well as leak repair in order to reduce water loss from leaking pipelines. What percentage of the identified high leakage pipelines for fiscal 2021 have been replaced thus far? That's one. What is the cost of replacing the high leakage pipelines? Two, if there's a program in place for that high leakage pipeline replacement, how many persons will be hired? And the other question I want to ask, is there a system in place where you have, field officers going out to check the lines? Because I made a joke recently to someone I said, I need to get a commission because I'm always reporting. There are no leaks. I want to know if there's anybody from WASA actually out there identifying these leaks and ensuring that we get rapid response from the from WASA.
Member, I think, unfortunately, many members of the team here and other members of the public share your pain. That is one of the great challenges that we have in terms of leaks on the system, as well as the way in which we interact or engage the public in treating with the repair of these leaks. There are crews at WASA that are identified for looking at these leaks, or should I say reporting on these leaks. But we have found that, there needs to be at WASA and with the ministry's oversight, we need to look at that system again. We need to look at how we engage with the public. The situation we spoke about before with the district metered areas and the installation of bulk meters to have a more technological look at our transmission and distribution system. if we are able to engage that at a faster pace, that will also assist and relieve some of the inconvenience to the public, and certainly make WASA more efficient at being able to treat with some of these challenges that they are now faced with in terms of knowing where the leaks are, or being bombarded with calls from the public that a more efficient system would negate. So we are aware, we know of the challenge, and it is left now for the ministry to work with WASA to fast track that initiative to introduce these bulk meters and to make their system more technologically sensitive, that we are able to know where the problems are and head off these problems before it continues to be an irritant to the public. Additionally, we are at this time committed to looking at the customer service interaction between WASA and the public, which we know is another challenge, and making that system, finding something that is more technologically suitable so that people at all different levels can interact in different manners, different ways with WASA to be able to get the service they deserve. So we are working on those things right now.
That's quite comforting to hear. However, I would still like for you to indicate in terms of for fiscal 2021, in terms of the pipelines, the leak repair, what percentage would have been identified would have been replaced, and the cost.
And we're prepared to do that, member. We'll do so in writing. We know that over the last 3 months or so, we have had about 6,000 leaks repaired. There still is a backlog, I believe, of 3,000 plus leaks that we are working on with WASA. But that is the figure so far, but we will specify in writing, where the information you requested. We also have a number of projects on the PSIP that will all for the rehabilitation of wells and so on, that will impact the distribution and transmission system, and will also lend in some regard to the reduction of leaks if we are able to get those particular projects well in hand and well executed. So we can also indicate that to you as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Madam Chair, I have one more question, but it's for the Ministry of Works and Transport. May I proceed?
Yes, you should go ahead and ask it now.
Okay. It's about the Topo Fast Ferry Port. I wanted to know if the feasibility study and the environmental assessment, if they were completed, and what is just a status update on that particular project, please.
I think Member Mark asked that earlier. I believe Member Mark asked about the environmental impact and the feasibility study on the Topo Port.
Yes,
okay?
I did.
Yes. Okay. I know Member Webster, you've been here long, so some things may really escape us at this stage. Do you have any more questions at this stage?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. But I was also having problems hearing, so I would have indicated that. So thank you.
Member Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you all stakeholders for bearing with us at this late hour. Madam Chair, I know you would have interjected on my previous question, but the response that was given had me a little bit more confused. So I just wanted to come back in to clarify. Is it that this is with respect to the 24/7 water supply and the move to achieve that 24/7 water supply nationwide within 3 to 5 years? However, in the interim, WASA in your response, you all indicated that WASA is focused on measures to meet a minimum requirement of the RIC for 2 days per week. Is that incorrect? Is that an inaccurate reflection in your submission? Kindly confirm, please.
Member, unfortunately, I don't have that submission before me, so I can only confirm what our project status reports indicate us concerning the different projects and what has been the outcome or the plan outcome for each project. So if I am to infer, and I really don't want to do that, but if I am to infer from what I have before me in terms of the outcome of the projects in 2021, I would say to you that what you have just read to me would have been an oversight on the ministry's part. Because definitely the things that I have here for each project, we have outcomes that are 24-3 to 24-7, 24-3 to 24-4. So as I said, I'm not gainsaying you because I don't have that submission before me. I'm only reading from what our status reports indicate. So my apologies for that.
Okay, Madam PS, I understand what you're saying, but I'm referring to your submission, to your written submission, which is headed Ministry of Public Utilities Responses to the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee. I understand that you are referring to the outcomes before you, but do you have this response in front of you? Because the only reason I'm pressing is because the response to that question went ahead on page 5 to say that, and I will quote exactly what is in the response. In some instances, in order to meet the immediate objective of the minimum supply to affected communities, water is being redistributed from communities receiving 24/7 water supply. As such, the percentage of the population receiving 24/7 water supply may decline in the short term. I am just trying to seek some clarification based on your responses to our written questions. What is the gist of this this indication and this initiative by WASA, which falls under Ministry of Public Utilities?
Yes, Member, I do understand, and what I will commit to doing is to, as I said, I don't have that submission before me. So what I will commit to doing is to seeking to get that submission and to provide to you the response that you are seeking in writing, if that's okay with you.
Okay, thank you very much. But then, Madam Chair, my next question is with respect to the wastewater treatment plants, both in San Fernando and Malabar, and it comes from the same written submission from the Ministry of Public Utilities. So I'm not too sure if I should pursue my line.
Go ahead. I am sure that the PS, through her team, should be able to access the submission because it's their submission that the inquiry is based on.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Chair. Okay, so I see that for the multi-phase wastewater rehabilitation project, we had an allocation of 88 million for 2021. And when we go lower down, we see that the San Fernando wastewater treatment plant is 95% completed, and the Malabar wastewater property connections was 99% completed. My first question is with respect to the San Fernando wastewater treatment plant that is 95% completed. How soon we will expect this to be fully completed and commissioned?
Remember, I'll ask the project manager to treat with that question.
Good evening again, member.
Good evening.
So those projects, wastewater projects, will a couple of the projects that we continue to liaise directly with WASA monthly in our monthly meetings, as well as day-to-day and weekly. So what I can definitely tell you pertaining to 2890 is that the contractor has proposed commencement of performance testing of the plant and for a completion date of May the 1st, 2022. Currently, overall, the completion percentage is 98.2%, where the treatment plant itself is 98.7% completion, and the collection system is 94.1% completed. I would say that we at the ministry are pleased to say that for the wastewater treatment plant in Trinity, it is actually completed, and the site is being prepared for our opening ceremony for the week starting in March 14th.
Okay. Continue.
Okay, so as it pertains to the other wastewater under Loan 2890, which is the designs for the Maloney wastewater treatment plant, those designs are completed. And last time we spoke with WASA, they are going to submit a report to the ministry onwards and our way forward in terms of actually doing works for the Maloney water treatment plant.
Okay, are you in a position to tell us to date, because I know these projects have been ongoing for some time, I believe it's since 2012. Are you in a position to date to tell us how much money has been expended on these projects and how close we are to fully disbursing or fully utilizing all committed funds?
Yes, for the interest of giving a correct figure, I would like, through my PS, if it's okay to provide that in writing, because the figures change quickly.
Okay, I understand that. And then there was something interesting that you mentioned in the submission. You all said that the current loan financing arrangement with the IDB for the San Fernando wastewater treatment plant did not make provision for the property connections. But then lower down, you all went ahead and told us that, you know, there were 75 properties that were connected on the Malabar wastewater treatment plant. So is it that you all did not have any monies allocated for the San Fernando treatment plant? Is that correct?
No, we had monies allocated for the San Fernando treatment plant.
No, the property connections.
Property connections?
Yes.
I would actually, through my PS, would like to provide the answer for that in writing, just to be sure.
Okay, all right. And in providing that response in writing, could you also let us know what is the full cost of the monies, the full cost of connecting the 72 properties to the Malabar wastewater treatment plant?
Definitely, we will do that.
Okay, and as I have the Ministry of Works and Transport, okay, so no, I will move on to Ministry of Works and Transport. I know previous members would have asked questions about the Toko Ferry port. I have a question with respect to the construction of the balance here to Toko Road. I noticed that there was a 55 million allocation, of which there was 30 million expended in fiscal year 2021, with 3.3 million coming from NIDCO and 6.36 million from Pure. Could you indicate what exactly this money was expended on? Was it feasibility studies? What this expenditure of 30 million was on?
So through you, Chair, as identified, that project was undertaken by two entities, the Pure under the Pure program and the NIDCO works, and the Pure would have been in relation to construction, but I will let Mr. Philip, who is the head of that program, give you a
Okay.
Good afternoon, member.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. The Valencia project is almost, at this point, is almost 72% completed. We have 8 packages with 8 different contractors working along the road. So all those monies would have spent on actual construction activities. We are actually, there have been lots of drainage works, landslips works, bridges works, all of those things ongoing. As I said, the project as of today is about 72% completed.
Okay. All right. Could you submit in writing for us the breakdown of the cost under these 8 packages of works through you,
Sure.
Madam Chair?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. With respect to Ministry of Rural Development, in your submission, you would have provided us with a breakdown or in Appendix 1 on the Local Roads and Bridges program and an expenditure of 42 million that was expended towards the upgrade of local roads. I'm trying to understand the level of collaboration with the Ministry of Rural Development and the Ministry of Works and Transport when it comes to working on these upgrading of local roads.
The Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government and the 14 municipal corporations are responsible for local roads. So that is primarily what we deal with. And the Ministry of Works and Transport are responsible for highways and major roads. From time to time, we collaborate in terms of, we sometimes get material from the Ministry of Works and Transport. Sometimes we loan equipment to the Ministry of Works and Transport. So we have a good collaborative working relationship with them.
Okay, all right. So then tell me something. Since the upgrading of local roads is entirely within the remit of Ministry of Local Government, Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, walk me through the process of how you go about identifying the roads, which roads needs to be upgraded at any one point in time. Because we all ministries, as you know, are working with limited resources, and it may have some point in time where you may have to forego one road for another road. So to upgrade another road. So could you walk me through the process of determining which one of the roads that you will identify and choose to proceed with upgrading?
Okay, I will answer that question in 2 parts. I will answer myself how we do it from the head office vote, and my DPS will answer what happens in the corporations, because he has functioned as a CEO in several corporations in his lifetime. At the head office, we usually upgrade roads, even landslips, bridges, drainage problems, based on complaints from members of the public. That is why we, at head office, who doesn't have a constituency, has that allocation. So essentially, members of the public would complain, either verbally, through our help desk, through the minister's office, and that is how we would prioritize projects based on whatever funding we have allocated. So DPS, can you now walk the member through what happens at the regional corporation?
Thanks, PS, and member, thanks for the question. At the corporation level, what happens would be these roads are identified by the local government representatives of the various electoral districts. At the end of the day, the council of the corporation determines what roads should be repaired and what roads should not be repaired, and they would basically determine the priority. This is a very systematic exercise whereby the roads that are recommended for rehabilitation would be inspected by the technical officers at the corporations, and they will do their estimates and justification, and then these estimates are then referred to the Ministry of Rural Development for review, and once the project unit at the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government is happy with the estimates, then the request for releases is then forwarded to the Budget Division, Ministry of Finance. But going back to the corporation level, there are so many roads throughout the country that requires this kind of attention that, I can understand your concern, because the funds that are normally allocated to the corporations under the PSIP and also under the recurrent program is mere a drop in the bucket as to what is actually required to really provide proper motorable roads to the citizens in the country. And as PS will have indicated before, the roads that we are talking about will be secondary roads that run and that span the different regions in Trinidad, the 14 regions. So just to summarize again, the roads are identified for repair, and these roads are ultimately approved by the respective councils and then submitted for consideration under the PSIP.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So I have two follow-up questions based on what you would have said, Mr. Sipol. One is that, so the criterion which to determine whatever roads get rehabilitated has to do with, one, the number of complaints that are received, and two, based on inspection visits after the council sits and looks at the proposal from the Ministry of Rural Development?
Okay, so normally before a road is actually recommended for approval or truly PSIP, these roads are subject to investigations by the technical officers to ensure that they are really deserving of being funded under this program, right? So it's not just because a councillor may recommend that a road be upgraded, the corporations will just go ahead and request funding to do the work. It is subject to inspections, it is subject to investigation, and then estimates are made to determine the costs, and of course, request for funding is ultimately made. As I mentioned before, there is further review by the ministry's project unit to ensure that there is justification for the request of funding under the PSIP.
Okay, so then and I don't know if you would have this information. You said that, receiving the adequate amount of allocation to conduct the works or to conduct the rehabilitation of local roads that are necessary within the 14 municipal corporations. It's practically impossible to receive that amount. But if you have to put a number to it, do you have an estimate on how much it would cost to rehabilitate all the roads based on your data and analysis of requests?
Remember, that's a question I really cannot answer, primarily because of the extent of poor road conditions throughout the country, right? What I would want to say, though, is that based on our analysis of of road works that were undertaken under the PSIP in 2021 by corporations. The corporations, all 14 corporations, were allocated a sum of just under $50 million to spend on their local road and bridges program. And this would not just involve road paving, but it will also involve bridge infrastructure and the construction of retaining walls, etc. So they were allocated, or they received releases of just under $50 million. And based on what has been achieved, would have been close to 29 kilometers of roadway being rehabilitated. Right? So, as I mentioned before, this is just a drop in the bucket, right? And it's impossible for me to quantify or to estimate exactly how much it would cost to bring all of our roads up to a proper standard. What I also want to add would be that the corporations would, in their draft estimates, make submissions to at least address the rehabilitation of the some of the more critical roads, those arterial access roads that really are highly used. Right? They would try to not go to an extent where they will do a shopping list to have all the roads paved, but these corporations will identify the major ones. And many times, in fact, every single time, you would find that just a fraction of what is required to address this issue is actually released. And well, I do not want to comment on that. We all know that the country is faced with economic, challenges. But this is the reality, really.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sequel. Madam Chair, I have one more question. I'm not too sure who would be able to answer it, but it's a question that I believe came from the public, and I too noticed it in South Trinidad. There are a lot of reports of vandalized copper cables affecting a number of areas in South Trinidad. Who is responsible for these? I believe it might be Ministry of Public Utilities. And what is the approach to repair these vandalized cables or to replace them so that service can be restored in these areas?
Member, I believe you're speaking to TSTT cable?
It says vandalized copper cables.
And therefore I think you're talking about I think you're talking, member, about TSTT cables, right? And remember, TSTTs are private. Yes. Okay. All right. Is that all?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. So. Thank you very much. I just want to ask, and again, this comes from a member of the public, and I'm going to put it in the context of the submission from the Ministry of Works and Transport. Madam PS, I'm referring to page 14 of your submission, which the question was the upgrade and modernization of navigational aids. Okay, which was something in 2020. Apparently, it went to CTB. A tender was sent out. The tender was closed, but nothing was awarded pending availability of funding. And it came back in 2021. So the member of the public is asking, When projects are presented to the Ministry of Planning, if it meets the criteria, but there's no funding available, are these projects still placed on the PSIP or deferred to the next year? And in the context of the question, I also want to ask, on your submission, what has happened or where are we with the acquisition of these navigational aids?
Madam Chair, I can answer the last question. You will permit me. Thank you. So in terms of the navigational aids, a contract was awarded. We made a mobilization 3 months in February of this year. Work has commenced on the 14th. I believe it's 6 in Tobago and 8 in Trinidad. The work has commenced on the ones in Tobago and then subsequently the ones in Trinidad. We are estimating a period of 76 days to complete. The one challenge we see is that the lights are to be shipped in from Canada, and there are some delays on that. We may have some delays on the project, but that is where we have reached so far.
Okay, so it's not, I thought it was 20, it's not 20, it's 14?
But yes.
So was it ever 20?
We would have had a previous phase, yes. So
you would have had a previous phase. Okay, so all right, if you could let us know, so there are 14 remaining and you said now 70 something days? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, that is our estimated time for completion.
Okay, so can I ask what caused the slippage from 43 days to almost a double amount of days?
And that does have to do with the logistical challenges in getting the lights in.
Okay, so that's a supply chain issue?
Supply chain issue, yes, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam PS. And then maybe I could direct the first part of the question to the PS of the Ministry of Planning and Development.
Chair, to understand correctly, you're saying that a project was approved and placed onto the PSIP in one fiscal year. And
so the question, just now, PS, maybe I clarify. The question from a member of the public is, when projects are presented to the Ministry of Planning, if it meets the criteria, but there's no funding available, are these projects still placed on the PSIP or deferred to the next year?
Simple answer will be that it will be deferred to the next year. At the time when a project is presented for consideration for inclusion in the PSIP, will be before that will precede the determination by the Ministry of Finance in terms of the total allocation that would be granted for a particular fiscal year. If it is that it is already known that funding will not be available, then that project would be deferred to the following fiscal year.
Thank you. PS, I hope that has answered the question to the member of the public. And I just want to wind up by asking to the Ministry of Public Utilities, and this focuses on solid waste management, and if they could let us know the status of the recovery and recycling facility plant and equipment at Forest Park.
Certainly, Chair. I'll ask the project manager to speak.
Thank you.
Afternoon, members. With regard to the recovery recovery of the recycling facilities at Forest Park. The works are in progress. Yes, the works are in progress. We have completed the procurement of some of the equipment for that particular installation. The total expenditure for that particular project amounted to $1.6 million. The works are, as I said, are in progress, but a detailed, certain works were done with respect to the fencing aspects of the works, and they were able to fabricate or to construct material bays. Works were executed by 2 contractors on that particular site. As also the equipment is in the process of being procured. For example, the certain like forklifts and the forklift weigh indicators and trucks and so forth, and belt conveyors.
So might I ask, how close are you to completion?
Well, the total estimated cost of those works was $3.2 million. We have expended 1.6. So we are approximately around 50% completion of those works.
Is it accurate to make that kind of conclusion?
Well, actually,
you're within budget.
We are within budget, but we have to do some additional works. The total request made by SWIMCOL for the execution of this program was $7 million. We had broken it down to $3.2 million in fiscal 21, and of the $3.2 million, they expended what the money spent amounted to $1.6 million. So we have some outstanding components of works to be done, but the full detail and breakdown of this particular project in terms of the scope of the works and the costs could be detailed in writing to this committee here, Madam Chair.
So then, might I ask, and I would ask for the details with respect to fiscal 2021 for these projects under SIMCOL in terms of the percentage of work done within the fiscal year, and also your budgetary expenditure within the year, and whether there were funds for works done that were committed and not paid within that fiscal year. Okay? And for the names of the contractors under each of the projects. So the recovery and recycling facilities, plant and equipment at Forest Park, the materials recovery facility, and also the engineered sanitary municipal solid waste landfill at Forest Park. Okay, and can I just ask as a last question, and maybe your PS might be in a position to answer, in terms of the 3.7 million allocation to SWIMCOL, what is the breakdown of expenditure on improving public awareness, improving site operations, disposal of infrastructure, and recycling at the community level?
Understood, Chairman.
PS, are you in a position to answer any of those?
Chair, we will provide those in writing with your permission. I'm sorry, Chair, we're not hearing you.
I'm so sorry. I'm mindful of the fact that it is now close to 6:20. And I'm going to ask the members of the committee if at this stage, if there are any further questions, if they can submit it to the Secretariat, that these questions can be posed to the entities in writing. It's been a long and very engaging session with the entities, the Ministry of Planning and Development, the Ministry of Public Utilities, the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, and the Ministry of Works and Transport. I want to thank the various PSs and all their technocrats for being here and participating so fully in this conversation. Usually at this stage, we tend to ask the PSs if they can say to us in what way they think the committee could assist them. I will leave that as a question for a written response. Okay, so that at this stage, I want to bring the public hearing part of this inquiry to a close. I thank you all again. I wish you all a safe journey home. I want to thank the members of the listening public and the members of the media who have stayed with us. I thank you all. Pleasant evening. This part of the meeting is suspended. Good evening.